I am Venki, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today's guest, Siddharth Kansal, is an applied sports scientist who works at his firm, the Consultant, with a variety of individuals and athletes from different sports. He helps them achieve their sporting and fitness goals through personalized training and nutrition, along with constant analysis and assessments using sports science. He has also been a martial arts instructor for 6 years and has been in the field of fitness consulting for over 10 years. He is working and has worked with athletes based in different countries from several sports, including cycling, running, triathlon, badminton, tennis, football, taekwondo, karate, and rock climbing. He was a state level 400 meters and 800 meters runner before moving on to cycling, where he raced at club, district, and state levels. In this episode, we talk about his journey in cycling, the work he does at the consultant, and the difference between a consultant and a coach, both roles which he plays in different ways. We also talked about topics like how to read research papers to separate the valuable nuggets from fluff, the importance of honesty in working with athletes, what is a good approach for rehab, the mental side of rehab, the importance of nutrition, and the role mindset plays in sports performance. I really enjoyed geeking out with him on various topics related to sports performance. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. But first, this episode is brought to you by Findbetter.ai. Findbetter is a social networking app for cycling and running enthusiasts to discover and shop together. Just like you post your rides or runs on Strava, you can post about your cycling or running related products on Findbetter, like reviews, stuff you are looking for, accessories you have for sale, etc., so that you and others benefit from your experience. For a cycling enthusiast like me, it is a treasure trove to find all sorts of bikes and accessories, both used and brand new. It is completely free to use and is available both on Google Play and the App Store. I am there on the app as Bikey Venky. You can follow me there to see what I am posting there. This episode is brought to you by The Bike Affair. If you are in search of a one-stop destination that caters to all your cycling needs, our today's sponsor, The Bike Affair, is the perfect place to check out. I have known the founders of The Bike Affair, Krish and Gokul, personally for nearly 15 years now. In fact, my first century ride was with Krish back in 2008. They are both exceptional human beings and entrepreneurs that believe in providing exceptional service to their customers, and it shows. With over 14 years of experience, the Bike Affair has established itself as a trusted source offering honest advice and exceptional service. They are offering a special treat for the listeners of this podcast. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your first order by using the code BikeyVenky on their website. So if you are in Hyderabad, visit their store in Kondapur, or if you are anywhere else in India, shop online by using the link thebikeaffair.com. I will leave the link in the show notes. Now, enjoy the podcast. All right, Sid, welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Nice. Sid, the first time I saw you, um, by the way, I'm referring to you as Sid, but for the listeners, this is Siddharth Kansal. Um, I think the first time I saw you was in a road race in 2012 when you and Sarvesh and I were riding together to finish the race. What was that?
Har Wali Jigni.
Har Holy Jigni race. Incidentally,
Hmm.
that race was also the first race
Enjoy.
of NJ. He burst into the scene and how, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the first time I saw you, and I mean, all of us have a common thread that all of us got dropped from the pain peloton when the attacks went. And how old were you at that time? 2012 it was.
21.
21, right?
20, yeah, depending on which month of the year.
Yeah.
20 or 21.
It was June, I think.
Okay, 21.
21 years. And you and Sarvesh and I were taking pulls to, finish that race. It was a, and I was really impressed with the way you both were riding, and not sure if that was the first race. Were you also there in the April race that happened that year?
The Stonehill one?
Stonehill one?
Yeah, so I started the entire season. So I started from the ITT and then even the off-road events. That was fun.
Right. So Stonehill must have been the first race that I
That was
saw
a
you.
crazy race.
Uh,
Insane. Like, I just feel that I feel really bad about the race because I think that was the first race Sridhar Savanur took part in.
hmm,
Those guys from Hyderabad, the Abhibas,
right.
those guys, and yeah, so I was going well. I think that was the first race where I got shouted at for not riding properly
Yeah,
because
yeah. I remember that. I was one of those guys who shouted at you.
because I saw someone attack and I just went for it instead of like going out safely from the peloton and then attacking. 'Cause like
No,
following, yeah.
yeah, I mean that is you were young, probably your first road race,
Yeah,
and but you were strong, so you you had to do something. You didn't know the safe way to ride yet
yeah.
at that point of time, and quite rightly got yelled at, I guess. But by the time you got to, I think the first mistakenly what I was mentioning as the first time I met you was by the time you got better, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember you being shouted at that time.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah, my teammates from Veloscope, like Brijesh, Mark, Durgesh, Balu, all of these guys, even Nagraj, all of them were like seniors. I would look up to them, try to learn everything from them. They taught me quite well. They was like
right,
very nice.
yeah.
And I used to read a few cycling books and also used to watch the Tour de France, listen to Phil Liggett and Paul Schroen. They used to like explain race strategy, how you're supposed to ride in a bunch, and like the unwritten rules of cycling. Like, oh, even if you fall down, if you're like a leader or contender for the race, it's common courtesy for others to slow down, the other leaders to slow down for you. And it was really interesting, and that actually made me like cycling even more. That felt like a very fair sport.
Yeah, it is, right? No, yeah. So yeah, that's when I first. That was the season, I guess. The April race was when I first saw you, and then we got to race together and ride together and finish together that June race, Horholly Jigni race, and I've been following you around from around that time. Um, Although you are, I mean, when I say following you, mostly on socials, but the socials are not a great place to follow you at all because you are not active at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a common complaint from a lot of people.
yeah.
Please post something, do something. You are doing so many things, but you're not posting anything.
Yeah, I mean, you never post anything, and although I know bits and pieces about you, I want to use this opportunity to kind of, get to know, catch up with you.
Yeah.
Catch up with you sitting, face to face, and also share the all the stuff that you do with coaching and a lot more other things that you're good at with others as well, so that others can benefit from that. So let us start by talking about you know what is your relationship with sport growing up.
Oh, it's a very close connection.
Yeah.
So I think it just started with me wanting to move a lot as a kid. Like my mom used to tell me, used to start when I used to just keep crawling around, or then when I started to walk or whatever, I used to run around. And then that part I don't remember. But then I remember when I started going to school, I used to try and find people whom I could race with, you know. I didn't want to just run, but like I wanted to compete with other strong runners,
Right.
so like whatever. At that time, it was like 30-meter sprints, whatever. Like I would say, okay, let's run from here to there. Let's see who's faster, and I'd love to play those running and catching games. And then from there, just it kind of, I guess, like competitive spirit transferred to every sport I encountered. I was like, oh, this is so much fun, So I would go to play cricket, badminton, and badminton was much later, but uh, yeah, whichever sport I could get my hands and legs on, I would go for it.
Okay. So you were quite active as a kid, but what is and running sounds like the main sport you were doing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it wasn't like
Sport,
yeah,
but you were just
exactly.
running around.
Yeah, so
But as a sport, when did this kind of take off?
so running was we had those athletic events in school. So those competitions used to happen, so I didn't realize that I was good in comparison to my peers. So yeah, I used to initially focus on, I mean, there was no focus, whatever was available and whatever was known. So we were told, okay, there's a 100-meter sprint, there's 200 meters, and then there's long jump and whatever. So I was good at the sprinting events. So I would just go for those and try and win. And yeah, so that's where all of that began. And then later on, when I was going for, I like cricket a lot, and I wanted to be like Sachin,
Of
obviously.
course, yeah.
And yeah, and so from cricket coaching, I realized so our coach used to make us run rounds around the ground. Like it was a large ground in NAL, and so there I realized that I had more stamina than everyone else. Everyone used to get tired, and I used to keep running. So then from there, it kind of that I used to just randomly go and run. One day I reached very early for coaching because I had to drop off my grandfather at the airport. So I was dropped off at the ground, and then decided to run like 31 laps around until everyone arrived. And
Oh, okay.
so then that became a big thing. Then that went to school, and then the school coach was like, oh, okay, you can do long distance. I'll send you to 800-meter racing. So then I started practicing for that. And yeah, so then I became a state level 800-meter runner and also 400.
So 400 and 800 you ran for Karnataka?
No, I wasn't. At that point, the school wasn't very supportive, so they were like, "Okay, just go for these events, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Be happy you got your medal, and that's it. You're not
Okay.
going further."
Mhm.
So school was mainly focused on studies, just
Right.
I guess catering to the parents.
Right.
So yeah, so from there I started. I used to run long distance just for fun, and 800 meters was like a nice combination of both speed and endurance. And yeah, so I wanted to break Wilson Kipketer's record of 1 minute 41.11 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. And then yeah, so that was and I realized that okay, I know what my max speed is, I know what I can do in 100 meters, so it is possible for me to break the 800-meter record. So I wanted to go for that. And then yeah, I started training for that, and then in the middle, though I had no idea what I was doing, I just go to Kantirva. There was a coach who would tell me what to do, and then Anyway, so eventually I was doing these long distance runs just for fun, and I took part in this running event, a full marathon randomly
Mm-hmm.
because I thought,
Full marathon.
yeah. So
Yeah.
before that, I took part. I think 2 years before that, I took part in a half marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to complete it.
Right.
And I said, oh, okay, fine. So without training, if I can do a half marathon, let me try full. So I tried full, and then so they didn't measure the distance correctly. The actual distance, which ended up happening, was I think 44, 45 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. Okay. So I think, and they were badly organized in the sense that they stopped food and water and stuff after like 2.5 hours of the race.
Okay.
So, and I had no idea about nutrition, food, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just like ran, kept running, burnt myself out, and then I'm like, okay, give me food. There's no food, and then my muscles are burning. Everyone was like bonking completely, and
Right.
it was the most pain I ever felt. My couldn't move, and yeah, so I had to quit at 39.7 kilometers. It felt so bad. I had to complete one more 5 kilometer lap after
Right.
that. I was like, I can't do one more lap. So while during that race, I got injured. I got an IT band injury because of the lack of training and the lack of food available. And so there I went to like multiple doctors, orthopedicians and stuff. They all said, okay, just rest. And then I rested for a few months. I came back again. I mean, it never went. So every time I would start running, within 500 meters, start hurting. And then the same thing. Doctors say, go rest. Same thing again, all over and over again. Went on for like a couple of years, and they couldn't figure it out. And obviously,
Rest was prescribed, but not rehab.
not rehab.
Yeah.
They didn't know what rehab was,
Yeah.
apparently.
Right.
Yeah, so then I realized, okay, I love cycling. I had by then I had participated in like a few BBCH ITTs and one off-road race. So I attended the ITTs with my mountain bike, and so that was fun. And I saw,
Which year was this?
I think first was in 2009.
Okay.
When I first raced, and I saw Naveen Raj doing well, and like all of the other guys with like really cool road bikes. Road bikes was like
So at
an
that time you were
aspiration.
like 18, 19.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, it was fun racing those events. And then I said, oh, if only I had a road bike, maybe I'm able to like average 30 kilometers an hour, maybe with a road bike. At that time, I think the time trials, people were averaging 35 to 37.
Right.
That was the winning time. So I thought, okay, if I have a road bike, I can win. At least that was the thing, thinking back then. So then, yeah, so when I decided that, okay, running's not happening, this injury is not healing, I said, yeah, let me take part in just buy a road bike. And by then, I had saved some money because I started working as a martial art instructor right out of school. And
Okay, so martial arts instructor. So how did that happen? Well, we talked about running as a thread.
Yeah.
Let us pick on the martial arts aspect of it as well. Because that's also something that is close to your heart, I would think, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it started with, I think when I was 4 years old, I used to watch my sister go for karate classes. And then when it was deemed right for me to go for the classes, I don't know what this thing was.
Maybe it was 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's too young. I mean, it made sense.
Yeah.
So then I joined my sister for classes. So I went for karate, and then after a year or so, I realized that. So one of the exams I didn't prepare for, and I went to the teacher and told him that, see, I didn't practice. I might not know everything. So he said, okay, this time I'll give you a belt. Next time you practice and come. So then I thought, oh, this is not that serious. So I shouldn't do this anymore. So then I quit. Like, I don't want to go for this. I mean, I expected to fail and I was like, okay with that. I don't know why. But yeah, but I didn't want to pass just like that. I wanted to put an effort to pass.
Right.
Yeah, so I quit. And then I think 1 or 2 years later, there were these taekwondo classes beginning in our school. So my mom told me that, you should join. I said, no, I mean, all these martial arts classes are useless. They say that they just give you a belt just like that. I'm not learning anything. So, but then she said, oh, she convinced me by telling me that my best friend is going for the classes, so you should also go.
Right.
And my best friend's mom told him that I'm going for the classes. He should also go. So we ended up going.
Right.
And then, yeah, this instructor was amazing. Devabrata Datta, he's an amazing instructor. So he taught me throughout school. And yeah, so from there, my love for martial arts began. And then, yeah, I continued for throughout schooling. A lot of people dropped out because, you have to study for boards and IIT.
Yeah,
and stuff. So, yeah, so anyway, I continued. I enjoyed it too much.
So,
And
and you, right out of school, you
became an
started.
assistant instructor.
Okay.
So I would go to multiple schools around Bangalore and teach
Right.
while I was also studying on the side.
Right. So teaching, coaching kind of started early
Yeah.
in your life, and not just the love for sports is there, the inclination for performance was there, and the inclination to teach and the ability to teach was also started quite early and young.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent, man.
Yeah.
So after from there, you now got into cycling.
Yeah.
I started racing. You started racing with MTB, and then decided, okay, maybe if on a road bike, I would probably get close to a win
Yeah.
and stuff, and got a road bike.
Mhm.
And how did it progress from there? I kind of know some part of it because from the race we talked about, that April
Yeah.
Stonehill race in 2012 is where I saw you, and then that's where you were a bit of a squirrel in the peloton, and then you were quite strong. Uh, from first time I was seeing you, and you had that sense of observing the peloton, what's going on around you, apart from suddenly moving. You know who someone is going, I have to go.
Yeah.
That competitive instinct was there, and and you were quite strong, but also the skill of holding your line and everything, where, as you said, you learned from your teammates and
Yeah.
watching the documentaries and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So how did that your cycling, the passion for cycling, and the skill progress from there?
Oh, so from there, let me say, so Mark, Mark Anderson.
Mark,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he actually held these workshops for us. He called us to Mysore, and then we all rode with him. He taught us a bit about cyclocross and how you kind of dismount, get back on. Uh, how do you sprint? How do you deal in how do you corner? How do you manage in a crit? In criteriums, how do you manage your position? How do you kind of hold your position despite everyone pushing you out and all of that? And so there was a lot of learning from there, and also descending,
Yeah.
climbing, descending, cadence, all of that. Basically, Mark kind of taught us everything.
Right. So for those listening and who don't know Mark, Mark Anderson was a US citizen living in Mysore.
OCI.
OCI, is
Yeah,
it? Okay.
because his wife is Indian.
Right. Okay. So he was living in Mysore for some time, and around that time, and he used to come participate in the BBCH races one or two, and then he was a part of Veloscope team, and he was mentoring a lot of people in Veloscope. At that time, was it? Yeah, before that, around 2011 and all,
Yeah.
I was part of Veloscope as well. So I think Yeah, around 2000, early part of 2011, I was part of Veloscope as well, and Srini was part of it.
Yeah.
Balu and all these guys. Of course, Brijesh, the lead of the
Yeah.
team, and you know, and Mark Anderson was an amazing guy. And he is a natural leader and a mentor.
Yeah.
So he loved teaching people and very lovingly, and he had the skill, he had the ability, he has the patience to kind of teach others.
And
So
also a great sense of humor.
oh, yeah. Amazing sense of humor. So, he- and I think later, yeah, during my first TFN 2011, it was great to watch him and Rajesh Nair kind of fight it out for the top spot. So I had the pleasure of riding with him during the tour. It was amazing guy,
Is
amazing
that
guy.
the tour when you became Lord Venki?
Yeah, that was the tour when I did the tour on my fixed gear bike and cushioned Lord Venki. But yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, so you learned a lot. I mean, Mark Anderson, he taught a lot of the techniques and stuff like that. So, and you from then on, like you have taken part in district, state, and nationals, right? So
No,
how did
I didn't make it to nationals. Yeah.
you didn't make it to nationals?
Mm.
So how how did it go? I think there you were also a part of Trek Firefox
Yeah.
team
The following
around
year,
that
yeah.
the following year.
Mm.
Was it like 2013
Yeah.
stuff? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that whole experience of being very active in the sport of cycling during that time?
Oh, it was great. I loved traveling. And then I think I reached a point where if I, sometimes when we had to go travel, meet our relatives outside the state, I would feel really odd not carrying my bicycle along with me because
Right.
I was traveling every month to different states. Sometimes it was Pune, sometimes North Karnataka or Chikmagalur or whatever, just for races. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Also Chennai,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Initially, it was a little cumbersome, but then I got the hang of it, and then it became like something I wanted to do. Even though the races were kind of hard, especially the Chikmagalur race, I traveled with the Specialized team,
Hmm.
Specialized Kinkini, and Wheel Sports,
Hmm.
and yeah, so we traveled together. We lived in a school, spent the night at the school,
Right.
woke up and just went for the race. And then they're like hundreds of people just crashing into you, and there I felt like, oh, now Mark's training is helping. Like I managed to hold my position even though I'm like a smaller rider,
Right.
because and then like managed to get out of that horde. And then once we got ahead, then it was fine because then there were a few people ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so those experiences gave me a lot of learning, like how do you manage when there are a lot of inexperienced cyclists around, and like you mentioned, I think just noticing everyone in the peloton
Hmm.
is very helpful to see who your competition is and also how everyone's riding. And sometimes, like even strong people they have a bad day, so if you notice that they're not doing well, then
Yeah, that gives you a boost
exactly,
and kind of you
yeah,
can plan accordingly.
exactly, you change your strategy based on that.
Right.
So those things, it was like a very, not just physical but a very mental sport, and I enjoyed that. I liked strategizing and making decisions on the fly. It was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, so and not making to the nationals, I think is a product of you being, giving trials from Karnataka, which is the most, I mean, arguably the strongest,
Yeah, probably.
probably, right? Uh, there's the you're basically competing against people like what Loki and others, right?
Correct. So
And
it was NJ,
hmm.
Loki, Naveen Raj, top three,
Right.
right? Then the fourth place was like hard fought. So I was trying to get the fourth,
Yeah.
and it was hard because I just had a regular road bike, and it was oversized. I had no idea about buying the right size for me.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
time trial is what used to determine the
Correct.
selections.
And I was bad at time trial. So all of those things were like working
Right,
against me.
right.
Like once in 2012, the fourth place was decided by a very n- it wasn't decided by the time trial, it was actually decided by the criterion, which is quite odd, but yeah,
Right.
they
Yeah, yeah.
the organizers decide on the fly, okay, who they want to choose and stuff. So yeah, the process not being um transparent was a big issue. Back then, they didn't even release the timing results of all of the people. So you wouldn't even know at what place you finished in the time trial. You would just expect that, yeah, obviously these people did better than me. I knew that a lot of people were better than I was, but at least I would know where I stood in that
Yeah, I mean,
line.
you would know how far
Exactly.
you know how far behind or you were, and so that you can put in that effort to bridge
Correct.
that gap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, back in the day, I would think the lot of processes were like very haphazard and not really clear.
Yeah.
But like you said, they would announce the people who got selected, but not really why or how on
Correct.
what
What basis?
criteria
Yeah.
and all that. But so you got you were doing well, um, but then what took you away from cycling? Was it the sport? Was it your studies to deciding to go to higher studies, or what got you away from cycling for that period?
I
After that period.
So it was, I think I stopped cycling towards the end of 2013. Actually, 2014, Feb was the last serious race I took part in. By then, I was kind of unfit anyway. Um, but yeah, what took me away was I think I didn't have a good experience at Trek Firefox. And I think the design of the team that everyone's not together, we couldn't really form a bond and have the right camaraderie within the team members. And yeah, that kind of was a big contrast with Veloscope, where or not just Veloscope, but like the Bangalore cycling community, where everyone was friendly, everyone's like happy. They're competitive, but they're also happy to see each other grow and race nicely. At that time, found the community very welcoming and encouraging. And when we moved to the Trek Firefox team, and they were very strong cyclists, they were great. They were some of the best cyclists in India. Uh, and but the problem was that we couldn't gel together because mentalities were different. Um, yeah, and aims in life were different. So yeah, I guess that kind of didn't work. Even though we had multiple uh, team gatherings, sometimes in Chennai, sometimes in Hyderabad, it just didn't work. And I think that got me down. And so I lost interest in the sport for a while. And then I decided that, let me and then rekindle my interest by, I thought that, I think NJ mentioned that, even Mark was mentioning that it's better if you race abroad to actually get a feel for things. And so I thought, okay, how do I get abroad? Is maybe go for a course outside, like a academic course. And yeah, so I did. I was searching for what I would be interested in, and yeah, I went abroad to study for that.
Nice. Just to kind of expand on that thread of team and team dynamics, right? You know, if you are part of a team, that can give you the motivation, the why to work towards something, right? That becomes a lot of people who are riding solo and all that. Once you see them part of a team, their mentality, their motivation, their training discipline and all that tends to be on the uptick,
Yeah.
right? Because they now have a purpose
Yeah.
in life, for their training, for their newfound motivation. Probably they have a new role in the team where their role is being domestic, or being a sprinter or whatever, right? Their goals are defined in a way that gives them motivation and all that. That sort of thing is very important for people, cyclists, because cycling is predominantly a team sport,
Yeah.
right? So uh, that was clearly there when you were in Veloscope,
Yeah.
and that happened to me. That was my experience as a part of Spectrum, uh, and that being part of Spectrum at that time was a kind of sea change for me, because it gave me a lot of motivation. I had a purpose and all that. So. Uh, y- because you were always riding together, you were in it, you were training together, you know each other well, so you had a defined role and everything. But it could work, probably it could also work in situations like that, teams where there people are from various places,
Yeah.
like in pro teams, right?
Yeah.
Most of the teams are like people outside.
Correct.
They come together for camps and stuff like that. But I guess that did not peter out that well with Trek Firefox,
Yeah.
at least for you, right? In
Yeah.
your experience. Uh, but so while team kind of can become a big motivator and can be a positive influence, if it doesn't go well and if you're not gelling there, it could be a demotivator
Yeah.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that that could happen actually, so I wasn't prepared for that at all. So yeah, that I think that the surprise kind of got me as well.
Okay, okay. So now you decided, okay, you wanted to pursue higher studies, probably in sport. So where did you end up in? How did it proceed from there?
Oh, so I initially started looking at like sports management, because that was the only thing sport related I thought they existed. So I was looking at that, and then I went for these um, education fairs which they have. You go and they'll tell you which colleges from which countries and what kind of courses available. And there I found sports science, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I can do maybe sports management, sports science. And then when I learned more about sports science, I said, okay, ditch management is boring. Because yeah, I just it basically ignited that intellectual passion in me, that oh, I get to learn so much about how the body works and during exercise and like all aspects of it, which is yeah, I still continue to have that passion for it. Where it's so exciting. You learn something new when something a new research paper comes out, which is kind of changes the paradigm a little bit. It's really exciting, and I want to go and tell people about it because it's so much fun. So yeah, that's what I experienced when I started learning about it. And then yeah, so I decided that maybe to uh, kind of get selected by the colleges, I might have to do a little bit of little more self study, because at that point, so this was 2014, 2015,
Right.
like throughout 2014 and the beginning of 2015. Um, yeah, so before that in 2013, I started uh, working as a fitness consultant with a company and their employees. And yeah, so from there, it basically I was, uh, it is quite funny. So I started with, I was doing commerce, and I started working as a um, accountant, and just as an internship to get a feel for things. And then I realized that it was really boring, because I started doing work, and then I liked accounting, but the head accountant wouldn't listen to me because I'd some issues in their balance sheets and whatever, and tell them. They say, no, it's fine. You just do this basic work and you should be happy. And I used to do that work, and then I'd get bored in the office, just sitting around doing nothing. So then I had a chat with my father and his friend, and then we discussed like, okay, what kind of I had ideas of what I wanted to do. I wanted to like where I used to look at people in the office and see like their lives just look so miserable, like no one's happy. So and that at that time I think I um was hearing about like Google doing great things to improve uh uh
Yeah,
I
employee
guess
health and stuff.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, mentality
Mm.
and all of that. So I thought, okay, maybe I can do something like that for offices and stuff. So then I started discussing that, and then they said, no, but you have like a lot of people look up to you for exercise and health and all of that. So why don't you try fitness consulting? Because so one good thing from Trek Firefox was that we were coached by these sports scientists from the UK, and that's where I learned a lot about sports science. Like not a lot, but it was like a starter course
Right,
on it.
right. Yeah.
So that was good, and so using that, yeah, they just convinced me that I should just start this fitness consulting thing, and then I started working with employees, and then once I realized, okay, there's these when you get the full body checkup, you get this blood test reports, and when things are off. So I started doing a lot of study on that. Okay, what kind of foods are required to fix which kind of deficiencies, and apart from just giving exercises and helping fix weaknesses, muscle imbalances, stuff like that, with my rudimentary knowledge.
Right.
I thought I was doing a good job, and then after studying sports science, I realized, okay, I did a decent job, but there was so many flaws because of, yeah, the things you don't know about, the things you don't know. Uh, what causes that for those things you feel like you're very confident about, but that's that's where you lack. And
Right.
then once now after studying sports science and stuff, sorry, I'm skipping back and forth.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that studying after studying sports science and learning about how many things I don't know, I feel so insecure. Like, oh, I don't know this, I don't know this, and at that time I didn't know so much.
But we were
So
more confident
more
than this.
confident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Luckily, I didn't cause any damage, so that was good. I
Mm.
feel good about that. I
Yeah.
helped quite a few people, so that was good.
Mm.
Luckily,
Mm.
that's by luck. It's
Right.
not by
Design.
design. So I mean, I was studying and trying to improve myself, but there's so many things which you don't really
I
realize.
mean, we start somewhere, but with the intent of doing the right thing,
Correct.
and we improve over period of time.
Yeah.
As we keep learning new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it is also the body of knowledge, even in sports science right now.
Mm.
Is constantly evolving, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It's not like this is it, this is the final thing, and
Exactly.
there is nothing else to learn
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
It is never like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a constant learning
Mm.
process. So you
Yeah.
yeah,
So, oh, yeah, so going back to where the studying aspect, right?
yeah.
So I use that as part of my essay that I've been working with this thing, and apart from that, I've also uh, looked at this sports science course, like a diploma, 6-month diploma thing. So I started studying for that,
Right.
and did that. So I helped like beef up my CV,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So then I got selected for like 3 colleges in the UK. So I realized that so there were uh, I, th- I think Europe and Australia were the best places for sports science
Mm.
research. Surprisingly, US wasn't that good at it. And I realized, yeah, so Germany and France, not France so much, Spain and Italy, you had to learn the local language, so that was difficult. So I guess the final option was either Australia or UK, and I didn't like Australia with all the racism reports around that time. So I said, okay, let's go to UK. And yeah, it was great. So there I got selected for 3 colleges, and I decided on the. Luckily, I got selected by my top college of choice. Um, how I decided on that college was basically the researchers there,
Mhm.
people working there. One of the lead scientists there was Dr. Louis Pasfield,
Mm-hmm.
who's done a lot for sports science in the world, and he's been he's worked with the UK Olympic teams from in the 1992 Olympics, 96, and 2008. And the 2008 Olympics, you saw how great the UK did,
Right.
and yeah, they broke so many world records, especially the track team, including Geraint Thomas and all these people, and he coached them.
Right.
So it was like, oh, I really want to work with,
Mm.
work under, or study under the Louis Pasfield, and then there were other researchers like David Hopker, sorry, uh, Dr. James Hopker, Dr. Glenn Davison, Dr. Samuel A. Mercora. All of them are doing amazing things in sports science research. And so people like them, I mean, there were also others like Mark Burnley, Dr. Mark Burnley, and others. But yeah, so
That
being in that,
decided that
that
you
decided
wanted to go to Kent.
exactly. And they were doing they had an endurance research group, so they were focusing a lot on cycling, primarily cycling, but also running, long distance. So and that's what I'm into. So that was
Right.
like, yeah, a no-brainer for me. So I went there, and it was just amazing.
Hmm.
So
What is the experience there? What did you learn? What were your expectations going in, and were they met? Were they exceeded? And what was the whole experience like?
definitely exceeded. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's when I realized that I finally found something which I can study all my life,
Hmm.
like, and keep learning and improving. Um, yeah, so I went there, and you also, yeah, apart from learning the course materials and stuff like that about training, performance testing, nutrition, psychology, injury rehab, all of those things. Apart from that, it was also like you could take part in research studies which other students are doing, master students, PhD students. So when you take part in their research, you learn more about lab testing and research and how everything works, and also how the athlete's body feels during performance. So I took part in so many of these Vo2 Max tests and gross efficiency tests and blood lactate, all of those. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I learned a lot from that, and especially when you're doing taking part in these studies for the PhD students, you get different perspectives and different ways of approaching different problems. Yeah, so that really helped expand my creativity and knowledge. So that was really good. And so I just like spending all my time in the lab, if how much ever possible.
Right. Right.
And yeah.
So, what were the kind of main topics of a sports that one would learn from a sports science degree?
Um, I think the most basic would be yeah. So okay, sports science is quite varied. It
Mm-hmm.
includes um, training, performance assessment, sports nutrition, sports psychology, biomechanics, kinesthetics. Sports medicine is also a part of it. And so there are a lot of aspects. So what I studied was not all of them. So I didn't study biomechanics. I didn't study sports medicine because I need a medical degree for that.
For that, okay.
Yeah, so I did study. I wanted to do biomechanics, but I'll get to that at some point in my life.
Right.
Yeah. So what I studied was so the performance testing and training of athletes, ranging from amateur all the way to elite and world class athletes, and how physiology changes for each level of athlete, and it's not just uh, based it's not just for cyclists or runners or whatever. You can, once you learn about how the body works, you can apply it to different sports. And there's a lot of research in different sports, and you can read research papers on that
Mm.
to understand how you apply those base concepts to the different sports.
Mhm.
And that's what makes it quite interesting. Right now, if a sports scientist, a really good sports scientist in endurance research, is approached for, say, maybe figure skating, how to improve performance for a figure skater, doing those multiple revolutions and all of those things. It's going to be difficult for the person. It's not like they know everything, but
Right.
if the person is open-minded and he does the research for that sport, then he'll be good at that as well, because he has that base knowledge of how the human body works and all of that.
Right.
So that's what makes it quite interesting, and that's what I look to do as well. I don't like sticking just to cyclists and runners, but I like working with all the other athletes from different sports.
Right, right. So, but since I mean, I am more interested in cycling. Let us talk
Sure,
about
sure.
cycling and running. So, what kind of tests do you do, or and based on that, what do you prescribe for improvement of performance?
Okay. I think everyone's heard of the Vo2 Max test.
Right.
So Vo2 Max is basically the maximum amount of oxygen a person can consume at a particular point of time. Okay. That peak lasts for just a few seconds. You can't. So it's basically breathing as hard as you can, and first of all, breathing as hard as you can and getting all of the air in, but also the ability of the body to utilize that oxygen. Because when you're breathing heavily, you're also breathing out, and a lot of what you breathe out is oxygen as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the amount of oxygen which you retain, which you use for the muscles, now that's what you want to focus on. So that's basically
What
layman's
the
yeah,
Vivo2
VO2 Max.
Max will give us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but VO2 Max is a good metric, but it's not the best metric for training, because it'll tell you what your peak is, what the best amount of oxygen you can consume. But you're not there, since you hold that just for a few seconds at a time. You actually want to focus on your submaximal intensity, so at your lower levels of oxygen uptake, oxygen consumption.
Right.
Right. So which is why these submaximal tests. Submaximal is basically tests which are done not at the highest intensity but slightly lower, because those are the intensities you kind of hold for your
Longer
races.
period of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except, basically
Hmm.
any distances above like more than 15 minutes, you're kind of
Right.
you need the submaximal test.
Mhm.
So so a good test for that, so I'll tell you what the positive about VO2 Max is, that if you have a VO2 Max of, say, if you're looking to be a world-class athlete and you've been training, and then you'd get a VO2 Max, you've been training regularly, and then you get a VO2 Max test done. And if you're a male and if your VO2 Max is around 70 or above, then it shows that you have the genetic capability of being a world-class athlete.
Right.
Okay. If it's, say, you train as hard as you can, you've been training for years together, and still your VO2 Max is, and training is good. It's not just like you're training
Yeah.
in a bad methodology. You're
Right.
training with a good methodology, and your VO2 Max is low. Low meaning 50, around 50 maybe, for a 20-year-old person,
Right.
so or maybe even a 30-year-old person. So that's it. That's basically your ceiling, that no matter how well you train, you can't go above that. That means you can't make it to the elite level, because people who are at the elite level, they are holding a VO2 of 50 during their lower intensities. And if you're kind of holding a 50 at your maximal intensity, you can't really perform that high,
Right.
at that high level, even though how much of you try, right? So that's where it helps, where you know what your ceiling is and what your capability is. And for women, it's for men it's around 70 and above, and for women it's around 55 and above.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you test it? Is it like put the one on a trainer with yeah, how do you is it like the prick test or
No, it's not. It's not a blood test. It's mainly you're measuring the breathing in and out of your air,
Okay.
and it's a gradual increase in intensity, and then until a point where you can't ride anymore. So you're like you said on a trainer, but you're gradually increasing in intensity over a period of 8 to 12 minutes, and you max out, and that helps to increase your breathing rate. If you uh, do a very quick ramp, then you'll be breathing very hard, but you won't be consuming as much oxygen. You won't be retaining as much oxygen.
Right.
So the test won't be valid. So you need to have a gradual ramp. Um, and yeah, you wear a mask, and the mask will be connected to either this thing called Douglas bags, where they collect your air, uh, all the air which you've breathed out,
Right.
or it's also what's more commonly used is uh, this equipment which is connected to an analyzer, breathalyzer it's called, and that measures the amount of oxygen you're in amount of carbon dioxide and oxygen you're expelling and taking in, and so that will help. And from that you do some analysis and then you get your VO2 max value.
Right. How critical is it to kind of know that, or is it important for any serious cyclist to do that, or are there alternatives that kind of give you an idea? Because those facilities are not available
Correct.
anywhere and everywhere, right?
Exactly. Those things are very expensive. It's expensive mainly because of the calibration equipment, because those have to be very accurate for it to be a valid test. Because anyone can just do the test, but then if the accuracy of the data isn't there, then it's completely pointless. So,
Right.
yeah, so there are other tests you can do, which are, like I was saying, the submaximal tests, which help you understand what your intensities are at lower levels.
How do you do that?
So the FTP test is a very good test for that. Everyone knows the FTP test. You warm up and then you do a maximal effort of 20 minutes, and then you do you multiply by that by 0.95,
0.9.
and then you get this approximate value of how much power or speed for runners you can hold for an hour approximately.
Right.
Then you have these other tests like critical power, which I like to use because it's a little more accurate in the sense that uh, each person's so for you, say for me, I could do a 0.95 and it might work. For you, if you do a point, I'm just assuming.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do a 0.95 for the 20 minute, it might be lower than your capability. For
Right.
you might have to do 0.975 for it to be more accurate for a 1 hour thing. So it varies between individuals. Whereas critical power is the same every time you do the test for each person. So
How do you test for critical power?
there's a few ways to do it. The two most common ones, I guess, are you do a 3 minute maximal effort test, and you start at your hardest intensity from the beginning, from second zero.
Right.
And then you just try and maintain as hard as you can. That's like a very painful test. It's one of the hardest tests you can do. Those 3 minutes last for like 5 hours.
Yeah, like Interstellar, the 1 hour here is like 7 years there,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. So, and then there's another way where you can tell a person to perform maximal intensity efforts over 3 or more tests. So you can do three, maybe like 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minutes, or three. You can, to make it more accurate, you can do 4 or 5. But then more than that is just pointless. But yeah, you don't go
4 or 5 of
Oh,
3 minute effort?
no,
or so?
4 or 5 different uh,
Durations.
maximal
Okay.
efforts.
Uh-huh.
So 3 minutes,
5
say
minutes.
5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. You don't go close to 20 because it's harder to pace. Like even everyone who's done a FTP test, you know that to get like your highest possible 20 minutes is very difficult. unless you're a great time trialist. It's really hard to get that even curve to get that maximal power. So that's why you do these shorter efforts, which you can pace slightly better. And from that, there's a calculation where you can calculate your critical power, and you also get a one more metric called W prime. So that's an anaerobic capacity, you could say. Sports scientists would hate to hear me say this, but yeah, for the layperson, it's basically the amount of effort you can maintain above your critical power.
Okay.
And critical power is a theoretical value. It's a theoretical in the sense that you should be able to hold critical power indefinitely. Okay.
Okay.
But in reality, you can hold it for like 30 to 60 minutes. So it's very close to your FTP value.
Right. So, I mean, we kind of didn't conclude, we are trying to do the CP.
Yeah.
Say we are doing 3-minute maximal test.
Hmm.
How do you, what does that value give? What is the relation between that 3-minute maximal effort and CP? How do you calculate that?
So it's not just a 3 minute, it's all the efforts.
Right.
And then you draw a graph and you calculate based on the slope it gets and all of that.
Right.
And the area under the curve. And based on that, you would calculate what your critical power is.
Basically, the softwares will throw the number out.
Yeah, I mean, if you can like sit and do all of those calculations, but you can like.
But yeah, there are softwares that give those numbers. What is that open source software?
You could also use Excel. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need anything very fancy, but yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there are like open source, like Golden Cheetah is a great.
Golden Cheetah, that's the one that I used to use all the time.
It's great.
It's wonderful software.
And you can make minute changes, edits to, like sometimes you have these random values of you have athletes, right? So you have like random spikes. Oh, he's done 10,000 watts for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Happening.
It will just throw it out.
Yeah. So you can just edit that out, and it's quite good.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about W prime. What does that give, and what is the significance of that?
So W prime is so say you get a W prime value of 10,000. So theoretically, you can hold 10,000 watts above your critical power for 1 second. Okay.
Wow.
So say your critical power is 250, you can hold 10,000 and 250 watts for 1 second. But obviously that's impossible. So it's more accurate for durations longer than 3 minutes. 3 minutes to 30 minutes is around where its accuracy lies. So you can actually plan your race efforts based on that. So if you're trying to do breakaways, you know that, okay, if my W prime is this, and you calculate. So let's use a calculator.
Yeah.
So say your critical power is 250, W prime is 10,000. So what's it called? And you want to do a 10-minute breakaway, maximal 10-minute breakaway. So 10 would be 600 seconds, right? So that would give you, that means you can hold 16.6 watts, 16.7 watts above your critical power for 10 minutes.
Okay, so that is 266.
Correct.
For
267. You'll be able to hold that until you get exhausted. So then you have to like go easier to be able to continue. And
right. So you calculate 10 minutes, the distance it will take for you to get to the finish line, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Attack there.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So depending on like the kind of breakaway you want to do, you can do 5 minutes and then double of that, or
right.
Yeah. Anything. So you can use it in so many varied situations. So it'll also help for race planning, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
So W prime is typically what? I mean, I've seen 15,000 and all that. Is there a typical value for that we see for most athletes, or how does that work?
So generally for sprint athletes, W prime is higher. Okay. For people who do time trials and like who are GC contenders, who have great endurance, they will have a lower W prime. And yeah, that can vary a lot. I guess actually I don't want to throw out random numbers. So
right. Yeah,
but
that's
good. 10,000 is kind of like an average value you
Right.
would get from person to person.
Awesome, awesome. So, we talked about testing for sports performance, as in these Vo2 submaximal test and some W prime and stuff.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's another test you can do, which is really good. Um, it's called the lactate profile test. And so that requires a blood sample collection.
right.
So that it doesn't require a lot of equipment. To be most accurate, you need a lot of equipment, but you have these lactate calculators, like how you have this AccuCheck to check your blood glucose and stuff.
Right.
Like that, you have these devices. They need to be a little bit calibrated. You need to see which one's the most accurate, and then yeah. So then, based on that, I mean, the most accurate would be the ones where you collect the blood, you put it in a test tube, put it in a centrifuge, and that'll actually calculate the amount of blood lactate. But if you want a more portable device, then you get one of these, and so that'll analyze how much blood lactate you have. And so during the again, it's similar to a VO2 max test where there is a ramp, but you don't go all the way to your maximal effort. There's no point because you're measuring your. So it helps to check your three physiological zones. So the three physiological zones are like endurance zone, tempo zone, and hard zone. It's just
Right.
heavy zone.
Right.
And so that's basically so zone. Let's say the easy zone is called zone 1, endurance zone, right? So that's any effort which keeps your oxygen, your that effort level. So since we are talking about cycling, a power value where you can maintain for long durations of time, maybe 3 hours, 6 hours, whatever. And so yeah, any power value under that lactate threshold 1. Okay, it's
Correct.
called the three zones are split by lactate threshold and lactate turn point, and so also known as lactate threshold 1 and lactate threshold 2, LT1 and LT2. That's become quite commonplace commonplace talk in the Bangalore cycling community these days. So that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, to accurately calculate it, you need to do this performance test.
Right.
So the zone 1 is low intensity, and you can have conversations while you're in that zone. In zone 2, which is between LT1 and LT2, you're putting in slightly more effort, where that's when your blood lactate starts to rise, and then zone 3 is the hard zone where it just continues rises very high, very hard. So lactate threshold to lactate turn point is around where you have your FTP and CP values. It's slightly below that. So say if you're it varies from person to person because each person's different.
Right.
But you would say your LT2 would be like maybe 5% below that or a little less than 5%.
Right.
It again, like I said,
Depends on
varies
person to person, but we can say,
Yeah.
roughly around 95% of FTV or something like that, right?
So yeah.
Yeah.
And
it won't be too off if we
yeah,
say
it won't be
that.
too off. It could even be 100%. It just like
Yeah.
depends person to
Yeah,
person.
And that's the kind of zones where we the polarized method kind of talks about. It's saying you should be mostly training in Z1
or Z3.
or Z3,
Yeah.
and not Z2. That's the main thing about polarized training, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And while the thing with this thing is that the threshold training methods or the sweet spot methods is like you are more close to that threshold, the more sweet spot, and maybe that falls in Z2, but not exactly Z3 kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
The sweet spot method is I guess more into tempo and sweet spot kind of zone. while the Polarized who would prescribe against that and say do lot more Z1 and
Little bit of, yeah.
a little bit of 20%, 80-20 kind of thing.
Hmm.
Uh, is that accurate
Yeah.
in the sense that the Polarized and 80-20, I tend to see them
Yeah.
quite quite close.
Yeah, so this 80-20 thing is like picked up by this author who read these research papers and stuff.
Mhm.
But the actual researchers, so I want to give props to the actual researchers, the scientists who've been working so hard and they've found out these different methodologies of training.
Right.
And I feel bad that there's these few people who just pick up those papers and then become millionaires from writing books on this. Yeah. So, props to those scientists out there who are doing great work. Yeah, so it's not just 80 to 80-20. 80-20 is like a very basic thing.
Correct.
It could be 90-10, it could be 95-5.
Yeah.
It all varies on the type of sport you're doing, the time of, like, depending on where you are in your training cycle, it would vary.
Right.
And some people don't even need 80-20. Some people might need a way more intense schedule. And it's also not just Z3. You can also train in Z2. So it's like 90 in or 80 in zone 1 and distributed between zone 2 and zone 3
Right.
also. So it's variable, and your coach has to prescribe accordingly based on, so the coach understands individual variability. So what you give for training for me would be different from someone else,
Right.
because that same training doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So you might give me like 80, 0 and or 85 and 15.
Right.
For someone else you might give 85, 5 and 10. Right. So it's variable.
Yeah.
Based on
The athletes, where they are, what their goals are, and what their availability is for how all these.
Also with sport.
Right. Yeah.
So triathlon would require more
Z2 kind of thing.
So long distance triathlon, so Ironman and all of those things. Those would require more low intensity stuff. For faster, shorter triathlons like Olympic distance or sprint ones, you would move more towards Z3. So it's you giving up plain thing of 80-20 has to always be followed is not good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Definitely. Because like we were talking about just before, it's also nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
We are constantly learning from research. One research might come tomorrow saying, okay, this is trash. But then we have to be ready to kind of look at all the studies and make sense of it and take what applies for us also, right? So this method of polarized training came out of mostly Norwegian athlete studies, I think. Right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so Dr. Stephen Seiler, he made it more common.
Correct.
But this methodology was being used by coaches and scientists in Europe much earlier. So he traveled.
He kind of
US.
gave it a form.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. So now that we are talking about various training methodologies, what is your preferred kind of thing, preferred training methodology, or what do you see working for most?
Like I said, it's very variable. Yes.
Yeah.
Polarized for most. But depending on people's goals. So say there was one point where an athlete told me that 1 month away, I want to win this race. So for that person, I can't give him polarized training because that's a slow process. It'll work for longer term, but for now, I just have to assume that his endurance is there and just give him some more high intensity stuff so that his top end is there to be able to try and win the race. So luckily for me and for him that he had that endurance base.
Right.
So he was able to he finished second because the guy who finished first was tactically smart.
Right.
So he
So
stuck
that
to his wheel and
yeah.
then sprinted for the finish.
Right, right. So that
Yeah,
tactics, plays a
yeah.
big role at the end of
Which
the
is why
day.
I like
Yeah,
cycling so much, where
yeah,
you may not be the strongest cyclist, but if you're smart, you can win.
yeah, yeah,
But you still need to be strong. You can't.
yeah, exactly. You have to get to a position where you can use those
Correct.
tactics,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you are, dropped in the first acceleration, all your tactics can be maybe used in video games.
That's right. So, yeah, you can see this in pro cycling as well.
Right.
Like several years ago, so there was Nairo Quintana versus Chris Froome, and Quintana was just as strong as Froome and probably even better than him at climbing. But the reason he didn't win is because his team tactics were very bad.
Right.
And yeah, so there were so many bad moves made by Movistar. Yeah, whereas Sky did a good job. I mean, they didn't have to do much.
Right.
Movistar kind of imploded.
Yeah.
And that happens even now. You see, there's like multiple opportunities. Like Richard Carapaz, he's strong. He's won a Grand Tour. He can still win Grand Tours, but his team doesn't.
Yeah, the
Follow the
team
right
also has
tactics.
to be strong and then follow the
Correct.
tactics.
Because he's
Yeah.
he's almost as good as Roglic or Pogacar or Remco, any of these people, But his team tactics and also, yeah, team tactics also play in if your team isn't strong enough. So how do you really make the best use of it? How do you make others work for you? All of those things, It's very interesting.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So we talked about testing, we talked about training
Yeah.
methodologies a little bit, and how they kind of help the performance. So
Sorry, can I
yeah, yeah, go
plug
ahead.
my performance
Yes,
testing?
yes.
So I conduct the critical power test, and so there are other performance tests also for cyclists, like the wing gait test or a repeatable sprintability test, where it's mostly for sprinters to check their sprint performance and their uh, what's it called, fatigue index, which helps them find out how good they are at recovering from their sprint efforts, and also the lactate profile test. So I conduct these tests, and yeah, like coaches can consult me for their athletes, so the athletes can take these tests, and the coaches can give better training prescription to the
Right.
athletes
Yeah.
using those tests. Yeah, so I'm doing this in Bangalore. So anyone who wants that can.
Nice, nice. So do you do this indoors or outdoors? How do you?
Mostly indoors, but they can also be done outdoors.
Right.
It all depends on
Yeah, how you can.
convenience.
It's also about how you can manage the logistics and stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
So wing gait tests, because you're going so hard, or the first methodology of doing the critical power test, those require really hard effort. So if your trainer isn't stable, you can't do it indoors anyway. You
Right.
have to do it outdoors.
Yeah, maybe on a hill or something.
Hill or flat, but completely empty road.
Completely empty road. Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff. Yeah, and yeah, it's not just the test, but also following the right protocol and safety protocol. So for example, the lactate profile test, you need to be, since you're collecting blood, you have to be very safe with it, because there can be like hepatitis B, C transmission, or other diseases can pass on through blood. So you have to be very safe, use completely sterilized equipment throughout the test. If your sterile gloves get damaged, then get change another one.
Right.
You have to be prepared for all of that. And one is this. The other is also about following the right training methodology, the test protocol. If you don't follow the test protocol correctly, you're going to get inaccurate results. So the entire point of the test goes waste. So yeah, these things are very important.
Good,
Yeah.
good. So, yeah, I mean, whoever wants to send their athletes, or whichever athlete that wants to get their all these tests done can reach out to the consultant on what's the handle on the Insta? The consultant, right?
Yeah.
With the
the
K.
website. Yeah.
K
If you
A
can see
N
this.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, my website is the same.
Right. So I will link
The
to the
consultant.
website and the Insta handles in the show notes so that others can reach out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So now there are other aspects of performance. How about injuries are common, right?
Mhm.
So your course also kind of touches upon rehab and
Yeah.
uh, also the physical aspects of it and the mental aspects of it,
Yeah.
of rehab,
Yeah.
right? So let us go there and talk about
Sure.
that.
Yeah, so interesting story about the injury rehab. So
Mhm.
once I did that course,
Mm.
I learned how to fix my injury, and then I was able to run again
Right,
pain-free. So
the
that was great.
ITB,
Yeah,
the
the
ITB,
ITB, yeah.
right.
And then later I found out that it's quite a common injury and can be easily fixed.
You have one here right in front of you. The ITB, the perennial ITB issue is that tight? What is this muscle called in the hip?
Gluteus medius, or are you talking
Uh,
about the soleus?
Soleus.
Oh, oh no,
No,
soleus.
not
Psoas,
soleus.
psoas.
Soleus. The tight soleus,
Mm,
that gets to me, yeah, all the time.
mm,
So every time it first occurred back in 2010 when I was
mm.
training for my first marathon.
Okay.
I got injured on my third long run, the 21K or something
Mhm.
like that. After my first 21K, I actually felt so good. That runner's high, they say, right?
Yeah.
I came back and wrote a poem on running.
Wow. Nice.
Right?
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. I would love to share it with you. But second was also fine. Third, the long run,
Mm,
I walked back the yeah, I think from halfway to the 21K. I walked back the
Oh,
10 kilometers. I had to walk back because I couldn't run. That my left ITB was short.
okay.
Then knee pain was like
Mhm.
so since then, whenever I start again and reach around 10 kilometers or so, it's
Mhm.
like it rears its ugly head. It's just because I don't take care of my tightness in the hips
Mhm.
and I don't release that those muscles.
Yep.
So it just gets tight and it goes into that injury mode. It's on me. I know that I have the knowledge. I have the theoretical knowledge. It's just that the implementation is shit.
Yeah, but it's not the psoas, most likely not the psoas which is causing the issue. It's probably the glute medius
Yeah. Okay.
or glute maximus, not the.
Mm-hmm.
So the psoas mostly is just the hip flexors and the lower back.
Okay.
This one is these are the more gluteal muscles which can be weak, which kind
Mhm.
of cause the ITB
Okay.
pain.
So, I mean, I actually ended up giving up on running.
Oh, oh, I feel bad.
So,
So no
I mean,
bar duathlons for you.
no bad duathlons for me anyway. But yeah. Let's see how that goes. Anyway, I mean, I find it very hard to kind of maintain both cycling and
Mm,
running. And cycling, it became my first love, although I
mm,
started with the running and stuff. But yeah, the let's go there
mm.
and talk about rehab and how
Sure.
yeah.
So that was the beginning, and then each of us were given a different athlete to work with to help with their injuries. I had to work with a rugby player with a hamstring injury, hamstring tear. So I had to find ways to, so I had to find which of the hamstring muscles which was injured and then what kind of rehab required for that. So it was a really interesting course. You would also learn about like the way the different muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, all of them, how they heal at different rates and what kind of rehab needs to be done for all of this thing. And I'm still learning because I felt that course wasn't long enough. It was just one module, and yeah, so right now I'm doing a lot of study on rehab
Right.
and the different muscle groups around the body. So
Mm.
yeah, slowly getting better, better.
Right, right. So what exactly did you do to get rid of your ITP? Because of course
Yeah.
there is yeah.
Oh, so I worked like I said, for my glute muscles, and I also checked if there was any imbalance in my quad muscles. So it could also be caused by like a weak vastus lateralis, so the left outer quad muscle, or also the medialis, which is the inner quad muscle. There could be some imbalance there, or it could just be that the muscle is really tight. So so I worked on all of it together because I was in a hurry.
Right.
So I don't know what exactly was the issue. I think it's most likely the weak glutes because I think sitting all day kind of causes this thing called gluteal amnesia. So the glutes stop firing. It's mostly a neuromuscular connection where the brain stops sending a strong enough signal to your glute muscles, your butt muscles, and so they don't work well enough to provide support.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't have enough of glutes to even for them to fire. I think they are long dead, or they didn't come with them. All right. So the physical aspect of it, but the mental aspects of rehab.
Yeah.
What do you focus on and stuff?
So generally with I understand that depending on the type of individual I'm speaking to, uh, the athletes, they go through the same different stages of depression as uh, a regular, I mean, a usual person does. And so you want to work through that and also see at what level they're at. And also, uh, apart from that, you want to see what the mentality of the person is. Is the
Right.
person very aggressive towards, I want to get better quickly. I'm going to work as hard as I can to get better, do all the exercises, do them 10 times more than if I tell them to do 2 times, they'll do it 10 times, and then you have people who are completely um,
On the opposite
downtrodden. There's like,
spectrum.
I don't want to do anything. I'm just very. And then you have people who are uh, like level-headed.
Right.
I mean, that's a little insulting to both, but it's in this context, I mean, people who have a balance between the two. But yeah, it's completely normal to be one or the other, or any of the three, depending on where you are and what you've experienced in life and through sport.
Right.
Someone who's very aggressive initially through their first or second injury can become a very downtrodden person much later if
Right.
those rehab and recovery haven't been working. So everyone can go through any of these phases, so you have to kind of work through them. And it's so people who push very hard, you need to rein them back, like hold yourself back, because if you push above the limit, you're going to get re-injured and get or that injury is just going to get worse.
Correct.
So you got to do a little less. There was this interesting thing. So there's a trainer for Kobe Bryant, and he also worked with Michael Jordan. So Kobe Bryant was one of those gung ho guys who would just go hard and do everything he wants to. And sorry, I forgot his name, but yeah. So what he did for Kobe was he would tell him, okay, do one repetition. So then he would do the right amount.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would give him maybe like 20% of what he has to do so that he does the correct amount. Because Bryant was all about going hard, wake up early,
Mamba
Mamba
mentality.
mentality. So that works with competitive spirit when you're actually in the game and all of that. But
when you are not injured.
yeah. But his overtraining, first of all, caused the injury because he was that made him successful in the first place, which is a great thing. And you can't just kick that out of your body just to recover from the injury. You can't do that. So your rehab, especially the physiotherapist, has to work on understanding what is required for the athlete, and then kind of
it's the conflict between that mind,
correct,
which is still like wanting to go hard because that Mamba mentality or whatever mentality you have, right? You want to still push, but the body is there in the opposite spectrum and you can't go with that mind.
correct,
And that conflict is always, most of the times that kind of results puts you in a very hard place when you have to undergo the rehab. That
Yeah.
I mean, that depression when you are not able to, work out, when those endorphins are not, that endorphin supply is cut off,
Yeah.
you are, most of us are in a bad place, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to, be very patient in actually working with people,
Yeah.
who are injured, who you are helping for, get rehab, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else can we talk about? Or what are the things that people can benefit from whatever you learned over the years?
Um, yeah, so let's stick with rehab
Yeah,
get deeper into it. So,
yeah,
um, so rehab is a very um, misunderstood subject,
mm,
and uh, I find that a lot of doctors I come across are not very pro rehab in my own personal experience, and
mm.
also in the experience of my
Like
clients.
just rest and it will be fine.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's made me lose several years of my own training.
Mm.
And a lot of people say they have an ACL tear. That's a very common injury, or a meniscus tear. These are an ACL is a ligament in your knee.
Mm.
So that's yeah, it's a very important ligament which
Right.
keeps your knee together,
Yeah.
and so that's a very common injury when your knee gets planted and you twist. That happens a lot in these racket sports, ball sports, all of that. So what doctors do is, okay, just you're done with the this thing, you start your rehab, and new research has come out which says that you need to start rehab as soon as possible,
Mm.
and depending on the kind of injury or the kind of surgery is done, it can be anywhere from the day of the surgery to like 3 days, 4 days later. You shouldn't wait long, because the longer you wait, the slower the rate of recovery from the injury. So if say I start on time, so say I get this surgery done, even though a lot of the times you don't need surgery, but say you got the surgery done, and 3 days later I start my rehab, and I follow a consistent rehab program designed by a qualified and knowledgeable professional, and I would probably recover in maybe three, depending on my age, I would recover in 3 months, maybe 6 months maximum. If I say, okay, I'm resting for 2 weeks and then I start my rehab, it's going to take a year to recover. Even though that those 2 weeks or just 11 days of gap can
Right.
double the time it takes for you to recover, because there's so many things which are healing in the process, scar tissue which forms, range of motion which changes. So all of this kind of
Oh.
slows down your recovery dramatically.
Dude,
So,
it hits home so bad that I have to talk about it.
yeah.
See, I mean, around this time last year, I had a crash and broke the shoulder bone, and I had the surgery, July 3rd was my crash. July 4th, the American Independence Day was my surgery. And the doctors were like, you have to, do these exercises, from the from day 4 or something like that. They said, you have to do these rotations, do
Yeah.
these movements and all that. And I was super scared because obviously there is pain and there is like, I don't know, I'll do it like, after a couple of weeks and
Yeah.
stuff. And now I'm still, I'm close to 1 year now.
Yeah.
I'm still working on my rehab because, right, I did not take that time to do those because I was scared. I was
Yeah.
on the opposite spectrum. I was like, I don't know what is going to be bad here. It hurts really bad, so
Yeah.
I don't want to do those.
Yeah.
So that kind of set me back. I think it's still going on the rehab. So yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, this is where the psychology comes into place, where the professional should also understand that, okay, they have to explain how the rehab process is going to look like.
Right.
it's not always going to be linear. You're not always going to be continuously improving.
Right.
You might have like suddenly one day during your rehab, oh, I feel so much more pain than I felt like 2 days ago. What happened? You know?
Yeah,
That
exactly,
kind of happens.
exactly. Yulan.
So you have to be patient. You reduce your intensity, relax a little bit, and then continue. But you don't want to feel like, oh no, you're injured again. Just stop all what you're doing, because that happens. So there are ups and downs during a rehab.
Oh, exactly what happened for me as well. So there would be a few good days while doing it, and one day would say, "Oh, the pain is so terrible. I think I broke it again."
Oh, yeah,
Like
it's
that,
terrible.
and then I'll stop for a week or two, and
Mhm.
then we'll start again.
Yeah.
It's a cycle that kind of can. So yeah, the rehab and the
Yeah.
actual good guidance there is
Yeah.
so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like training, there has to be progression. So a lot of the times, what um, the physiotherapists recommend is just the most basic exercises. And once you pass them, you have to progress to a little harder,
Yeah.
greater range of motion, a little more intense exercises to make it stronger. So, but the thing is that once it's a combination of both. One is that either physiotherapists don't mention that, or that the athlete's like, okay, I don't feel pain anymore, so it's all fine, and then they push a little bit and then they get injured again.
Right.
So it takes time. Even though you don't feel pain doesn't mean you've completely recovered. You have to continue that strength and conditioning process to really it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And you ideally want to reach a point where you're stronger than you were before the injury, so you don't re-injure the same
Right.
region. Yeah.
So nice. Yeah, I mean it kind of hits home when you are talking about it. I can relate it so much because it's so fresh. Still, I'm still working on
Yeah.
that strength and conditioning. So yeah, what else? What else can we talk about? We covered quite a bit of ground. So people can reach out to you on the consultant
Yeah.
website and Insta handle. And this has been really fun catching up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at what you have more.
Yeah, so I was wondering if we can
Hmm.
like this would be a nice discussion to have, like difference between coaching and consulting. So
All right, the consultant talks.
yeah.
So for the listeners, the consultant is with a K because this is Siddharth Kansal. It's a play on his last name. Say so it is a Kansal consultant Tant consultant. So yeah, let's talk about that. That's a very nice topic. The difference between
Yeah.
coaching and consulting. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people refer to me as a coach, which might be correct in a certain circumstances, but not all. So if it's considering running or cycling, where I have a little more knowledge about the sport, I can tell them, okay, this is so. I Okay, so sorry. So there I can teach people about the technique and all the other aspects of the sport. Kind of strategizing and strategizing races to training. I mean, training is part of the consulting bit, but basically improving physiology is part of the consulting, but that's not what coaching is all about. Like you're a coach, so you know that it's not just the pure number aspect that, okay, do this training today, do this tomorrow, do this the next day, and that's my job done. It's not that. You have to work with the athlete. You have to go with them through ups and downs, through their emotional distress, mental distress, or their upticks as well. And if they're doing really well, they feel very confident. You're like, yeah, but
Hold back a little bit. Yeah, not so fast. Yeah.
yeah. So the combination of all of that. Whereas consulting, which is what I mostly do, is mostly about either helping the athlete directly about what kind of things they can do to improve what kind of exercises, what kind of training plan they can devise to get better performance from their body So this would be both through uh, exercises and also through sport nutrition. So this can also be applied. So a coach can consult me with like guidance. So they would create. So it's not necessarily just for the cycling or running, but it could be a different sport.
Right.
Like this works more for ball sports and stuff where there's a lot of skill involved. So say tennis players, they have uh, great technique, but the body isn't performing. They aren't able to last a 3 hour match, or they aren't able to hit a hard enough forehand or backhand and stuff.
Right.
So that's where I can say, okay, these things need to be addressed. This is the strength and conditioning thing which they need to do. But at the same time, they have to also work on their skills because that's a major part of the sport.
Right.
So there, it's like the consulting job. It's
Right.
not a coaching job.
Yeah.
So that's where I find a little hard because the coaches feel a little insecure that, oh, this person's going to come and take over my athlete. But
Right.
that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want the athlete to do better,
Yeah.
basically. So yeah, that's I feel in India that's quite, people don't find that separation where between coaching and consulting. I'm not
Right.
trying to go.
Right. Yeah.
The same thing goes with these performance tests. Like if I've approached a few people and they're like, oh no, maybe I tell them that it'll be helpful for their athlete to do this test, but they keep second guessing because they think, okay, now the athlete is going to run to me. So coaching. I'm not the coach. I don't know the athlete well enough. You have a personal connection. You have a good training plan and all of that. I'm just here to kind of support that, give you more information so that your athlete can do better.
Right.
It's yeah.
Oh, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And what else? We talk about nutrition? We did not.
Yeah.
So let's go there. What does a good nutrition plan look like?
Is it for cycling or any sport?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with cycling.
Okay. So a lot of things. This is in general first.
Yeah, in general first, and then
Yeah.
cycling. Yeah.
So in general, a lot of people, they think, okay, now that I'm taking the sport seriously, let me run to supplements. Supplements this, supplements that. Oh, I need to take a protein supplement. I need to take like a beta alanine thing. I need to take caffeine. I need to take some other gels and whatever. But kind of slow down. So
Nitrates, beats, everything. Yeah.
that stuff is good. All of
Yeah,
it is good, but it has to have a correct timing and a correct time and place. Some people, go overboard and go into banned substances which can harm their body. So anything to get an edge.
Right.
But you can't you have to reach the edge to get the edge, right?
Okay.
So you need to build a good foundation of good food. Like if you don't know if you're having you have a good diet or anything, you can get a comprehensive blood test report, see if you have any deficiencies. A lot of people have deficiencies in various vitamins and minerals, so work on those things first. Develop a good healthy eating and recovery habits. So eat well, sleep well, time your food well, pre-racing, pre-training, post-training, all of this. So first develop these habits, then you add on these sports nutrition aspects to it. So you improve your timing of your nutrition. So just before your ride, you can just have an egg sandwich and go. Or
Right.
if you're vegetarian, just like a peanut butter or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, right? And go for your ride. You time it well. So if you're going for a long ride, you need to eat a little more and maybe a little closer to your ride. If you're going for a short ride, hard intensity ride, you want to move it further back so it digests in your stomach, and then so that when you're going for a high intensity effort, you're not you don't feel like puking. So stuff like this. So get these basics right.
Right.
And then from there you move on to, okay, on the bike nutrition. How do you eat? What you need to eat?
Right.
How often?
And how much?
Yeah, how much
often, yeah.
exactly? So overhydrating. Overhydrating in the sense that not just drinking a lot of water, but also drinking a lot of water with high amounts of glucose and salts and stuff. high amounts of glucose and salts can also get you dehydrated. So you need to measure the right amount. There has to be a proper uh, uh, quantity of glucose and salts which you need during a ride. And it has to be balanced out with water to have a good combination.
Right.
Then from there you progress to, okay, say with your good nutrition and all of that, you still feel like you're not recovering fast enough, or there are few things you feel like you're feeling a little weak. Maybe you needing to sleep instead of your regular 8 to 9 hours, you want to sleep 10 to 12 hours. Then okay, maybe you need to start looking at increasing your protein intake through your regular food. If you And even with your regular food, if you can't increase it, like you'll have to overeat, then you kind of move on to, okay, let me get like a whey protein supplement, or like a plant protein supplement. And it's a supplement, it's not the main
Yeah, that's the key operational
exactly,
word, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let us touch upon the how much we talked about if we have too much in the too much
Mm-hmm.
glucose in the and salts in the drink,
Yeah,
it can lead to dehydration. So
correct.
what would be a typical range that that could be kind of work for most people,
Mm-hmm.
and where they can start and kind of experiment and see what works best for them. Would it be like 60 to 90 grams per hour kind of scene? How is that?
Yeah, so body metabolizes the different sugars differently.
Hmm.
So if you're taking just pure glucose, then if you have more than 60 grams, your body is not going to utilize it,
Observe it. Yeah.
absorb it.
Hmm.
So you 60 grams per hour
Hmm.
of glucose.
Correct.
So if you have more than that, you are either in a good in a in a good case, you're just going to pee it out,
Hmm.
or in bad circumstances, you're going to have stomach issues.
Right.
And even if say you just started cycling, and you say, okay, fine, have 60 grams of glucose per hour during your ride.
Hmm.
Now, suddenly the person can start developing gastrointestinal issues, because body takes time to get used to
Get
being
used to
able
it.
to
Yeah.
absorb and digest the nutrition while doing your cycle rides or runs or whatever sport you're
Hmm.
doing.
Hmm.
So, and it's not that you always have to reach the highest level. So, like we discussed earlier about the zones.
Hmm.
So, if you're in an easier zone, you don't have to consume as much sugar, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you're going harder, you might have to consume more. And sometimes it goes over. So, you can't consume enough to replenish the amount you're using.
Especially
Yeah.
in races and stuff when
Yeah.
high intensity is higher, we
Correct.
tend to go with the similar nutrition that we use for our normal rides,
Right.
and that is where most of us kind of go wrong, because because the intensity is that much higher,
Correct.
your nutritional needs also go higher.
Yep.
That's why, if you are able to do a 100-kilometer ride on a couple of bottles, it doesn't mean that you can do a 100-kilometer race with a couple of bottles.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you got to understand that, and be prepared accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is something that we learned
Yeah.
with a lot of trials and errors
Yeah.
and a lot of bonking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I make this mistake even now, even though I have the knowledge, right? I do this, like, if I just say I haven't raced for a while now,
Hmm.
so if I just get back to a race just now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that mistake, because
Right.
my body isn't used to consuming the 60 grams per hour.
Correct.
So I
Yeah.
just consume it and I'll be like, "Ah, I can't
Mm.
move.
Yeah.
Then I feel like I'm bonking, but why am I bonking? I had enough food.
Right.
What's going on?" And then that's because my body isn't used to it anymore. So I need to do some training
Train it again,
to
all
get
over
that.
again.
Yeah,
Like we train the body again, gradually.
exactly.
You have to train the gut again to kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So what else? What else
Uh,
can we touch upon? Right.
uh,
I gather that you have some notes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, like, coaching in
Hmm.
general. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like there's certain responsibilities coaches have for their athletes.
Right.
Um, to be one is to be honest, and also honest to the athlete about their performance and what's going on with them,
Right.
and also about themselves. and their own knowledge. And sometimes coaches, they go beyond what knowledge they have, but they kind of you know wing it, like, oh, I know this stuff.
Right.
They'll maybe read a little bit online and say, okay, I pick up this word here, this word here,
Right.
and then the athlete thinks I know that stuff. But you are causing harm to your athlete if in critical circumstances you're messing around with things you don't know. Like a lot of you see a lot of people getting uh, uh, dope testing violations. You get those, and then you also have people who aren't training perfectly right, or they overtraining. It's like
Overtraining is so
Correct.
frequent and so often. Yeah.
one of the athletes who came to me, she was her previous coach didn't give her any rest weeks. She had been overtraining for 6 months. She was completely dead. And she's like, why I'm training so much? I'm not improving. I'm becoming worse. What's going on? And then I found out that coach is giving the same plan to all of the athletes he's coaching. So the best athlete and the strongest athlete versus the weaker athletes versus the most beginner athletes. You can't give the same training. You have to be responsible. It's just okay, just because um, you are famous and you're doing a good job doesn't mean that in your own sport doesn't mean that you can mess with other people who are putting their trust in you.
Right. Yeah.
And that this luckily she stopped after 6 months, right? If this had gone on for 2 years, overtraining can be terrible. You can be your muscles can be in a really bad state, and you can't really do anything mentally and physically. So it not just affects your muscles and tendons, it also affects your nervous system and the connection to your so all of that can cause, it can take years to recover from, and that's really
Years is actually putting it mildly, because
Yeah.
it can mess up your entire career and also in general health, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't mean same plan for athletes at different capabilities is one thing.
Yeah.
But even the best of the athletes will need the rest weeks and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You got to take that into
Yeah,
consideration.
that-
Intensities can be
Correct.
more and stuff like that, but rest is needed for every damn person.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I completely agree with you, because as a coach, you're a coach doesn't mean that you know everything.
No.
No, and you don't need to project that you know everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So this is something that it is a learning process for everyone, right? When you are when you are trusted with someone else's training plan and progression, it means that you are agreeing to work with him for his betterment. That in the process you are also becoming better, learning stuff, and becoming a better person and better coach.
Yeah.
Right? You got to understand that it doesn't mean that you are the all-knowing one,
Correct.
omniscient, right? Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, honesty
Hmm.
becomes the bedrock
Yeah.
of anything we do,
Yeah.
right? If you are not honest with yourself,
Correct.
you can't do well with anything that you do. So that becomes a bedrock, and that's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
We have to start there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's same. I like that you said that. There's also this certain circumstances when someone comes to me with, say, some issue, maybe an injury,
right.
and it's something which I'm not familiar with, a body part
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
familiar with. I'd say, okay, go to a doctor first, go to a good doctor, find out what they say, get a good rehab plan. I can look over it and see, because I understand the basics of it, but I wouldn't know exactly what to do, right?
Right.
So I would know whether the plan is good or not, and I would tell them, okay, maybe try a different person, or if that's working well, I'll say, okay, go ahead.
Right.
But yeah, you have to have, which is why that these things, when I notice I don't know these things. It kind of pushes me to, there's so much more to learn. It's so much fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. If
you can't possibly know everything.
if you can't possibly know everything, and if you think you know everything, and what else is there to do in life, man?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Like, for example, I'm not familiar with heart rate variability training.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone comes and asks me about it, I'll say, yeah, I know a little bit. Like I read some initial papers which talked about that it's not completely clear, but you can create um, uh, you can find a pattern for each individual. So you can check your own heart rate variability and get that. But I don't know it in depth. So I'll just tell them point blank, I don't know that. Maybe I can study a bit. I should study it a little more to find out more about it. But yeah, I right now I'm studying about so many other things, so I can't put in. So these things you have to be humble and you have to be honest.
Yeah,
that's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anything else that we can talk about?
Oh, right. I keep going away from nutrition.
Yeah.
So, there's this, you know about the nitrate thing, right? The dietary nitrate you touched.
Right. Yeah, yeah. The beats.
Yeah, beats. So it's a really cool thing, and I wanted to talk about how it affects regular people like us, a little more serious cyclists, and then elite people like Roglic.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a very cool mechanism of the body. This is what makes I'm gonna explain why sports science is so interesting to me, right? So dietary nitrate is available not just in beetroot, like most people know, but in a lot of other vegetables like spinach, Chinese cabbage, radish, celery, all of these things in different quantities. And when you consume it, the body processes it and processes it. Yeah.
You're all right. Go there.
Thanks. Yeah. And so then it goes to your salivary glands, and the bacteria there
breaks it
down to nitrite. Okay, and then that goes back into your stomach, and the acids in your stomach convert it to
so that's why they ask you not to brush after consuming the beet thing. Now it makes sense. Yeah.
And then so then from the stomach it goes to your liver. Liver converts the NO back to nitrite, which is then sent to the spread to the blood vessels, and the nitrite helps to dilate the blood vessels, so make them wider, so that there's more blood flowing through each blood vessel, and then there's more blood for your muscles to.
Yeah, man.
So it helps improve the endurance.
There is so cool. The body is amazing, right? The way it works, and it's all really fascinating how all these nowadays there is this ketones is a big thing in the pro peloton, and people.
It's shown mixed results, but
I mean, people will every few years something will be like at the top of their agenda, and they will be trying all these things and say, okay, maybe it's also to mask something else, but there can be things. Yeah.
So going back to nitrate so this works for most people, almost everyone.
Right.
But then when it goes to they did the same research, nitrate research on the most elite sports people, best runners, best cyclists, the top of the line guys, basically professionals, not just the very cream, but like most professionals.
Right.
And they found that nitrate doesn't help them.
Interesting.
And they're like, why doesn't it help? What's going on? And then they found that the blood capillary density, so the amount of blood vessels which go into your muscles, which go into the muscles of the professionals, is so great that the vasodilation doesn't increase the amount of blood which is flowing because it's already at the max capacity.
Oh.
So that just shows the kind of physiologically they're so different from us.
Right.
We're like mere mortals, and
Yeah.
so
So that's so fascinating,
yeah,
right? And we look at them going up a hill at 30, 35 kmph, and it's like, oh, maybe I can do it. But yeah.
yeah,
The because the years of training, the
correct,
volume of training, the intensity of training, everything kind of contributes to the
correct.
change in physiology over the
Mm,
years, right?
yeah,
And they become from mortals, maybe they would have started, maybe genetically gifted mortals
yeah,
they might have been, but when they started, but they're not the same now, right?
yeah,
So yeah, what works for us might not work for them,
yeah.
and what works for them might not work for us. Yeah.
Exactly, which is why the training has to be different.
The training has to be different. You don't just have to I mean follow some pro athletes and
Correct,
on Strava and copy their workout
correct.
and do and expect the same results,
Yeah,
right?
you'll
Yeah.
probably die the next day.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so this is what I wanted to talk. I wanted to express.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I mean,
It is.
I feel like why aren't more people doing sports science? It's so much fun.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very, very interesting. So, anything else that we can touch upon?
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is about research and um, what's good research, what's bad research. Because research, everyone's like, okay, this research paper is peer reviewed and everything, so it must be good. But no, a lot of peers, I mean, the papers aren't well reviewed,
Mm.
and so poor quality research comes out. Um, and that's the case with also scientist mentality as well. I'll touch upon that as well.
Right.
So you can't just so as a coach or as an athlete, if you're coaching yourself and trying to improve your knowledge, it's better if you kind of read the research papers through and through, so that you actually understand if the methods used in the research are good. Because say they're let's say you're the people they've included in this, and if it's applicable to you, say the people they've included in the study are sedentary people, right? People who don't exercise much, and then they've given them XYZ training plan, and then they see performance improvement, and then they publish that, oh, this training plan's great.
Right.
But any training stimulus is going to help a sedentary person, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
That's why we see so much, 30% improvement in FTP and all that when we start,
exactly. Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
And then now sees 30%.
Yeah.
Forget 30 watts, 3 watts would be a,
Yeah.
bonus. Yeah.
Yeah, so your training plan, if you're getting it from these experimental studies, you have to see if it's applicable to you. And even after it's applicable, you have to see if it's actually you're responding to the training.
Right.
So say you and I are the same age, same FTP, all of that, like all of these parameters are the same. I'll give you a training plan saying, okay, do a 5-minute interval and the same plan to me. You'll improve and I won't improve, and it's like, what's going on? We are the same. No, it's not happening.
Right.
That's because there is so much variability, even if you're at the same level, exactly the same level.
Right.
So yeah, that's why you need to like cater it to your athlete, and so this is where one is picking the right studies, and also some studies are completely useless.
Yeah.
So where the methodology used, there are so many errors, you can't repeat the study again. So if someone else conducts the same study, you're not going to get the same results. So that shows like, okay, that research is not that effective. You know. So yeah, those kind of research papers, you reading through all of them will make you understand, okay, this is not right, this is right. So yeah, that's coming to like scientists who are not doing good job anymore. Right. So when you start off as a researcher, you're always trying to improve the knowledge, trying to get it better, and then over time you kind of develop your biases and things which you like to do and which you think are effective. Everyone does that in every sport, every workplace, anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, right, even I don't like keto diet, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is bad, terrible. But the thing is that if you don't keep an open mind, you're not going to learn more. You're not going to see different variabilities. So there was an example for that is there was uh, I was talking about the VO2 max test, right?
Right.
There's the traditional test which has been used for several years, and someone thought, a researcher thought, okay, let me see if I can find a better way to do the VO2 max test, maybe
Right.
find a better accuracy and higher VO2 max values. So he came up with this methodology, and he tested it and he found good results. So then he published that paper, and then other scientists from other universities are like, no, this guy is useless. Then they started trying to bring him down, and he was, because those scientists were more prominent, they kind of brought down his research, and it's not that well known anymore. And that's an example of bad scientists who are, when they started off, they were doing great jobs and they're improving science. But then once they developed that bias that, okay, this is it, this is the only right method, then they kind of try to shut down all the other methods.
Yeah, yeah. This kind of I mean, this is an age-old problem,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's from I don't know when this has been going on.
Yeah,
Like people, coming up with new knowledge, new proposals, new theories. Getting shouted at and
correct.
shunned at and what even death penalties and all.
Or
Right,
right,
right, right.
right.
Back in the days.
Mm.
Uh, but it is happening in a more
Civilized. If you can call it civilized.
I mean, yeah, it is not really
Yeah.
civilized, but it is still happening.
Mhm.
We all kind of tend to get cozy with our own
That's right.
comfort zones and don't want to go out of it
Yeah.
anymore. We are even that happens like you're saying, it happens all the time at
Mm.
all the places like
Yeah.
workplaces and all. As an youngster, you would have started doing working your ass off, trying to really curious and all that. Now you are in a different place in life and you don't want to do that anymore, but when you see someone doing it, you have to be open-minded and
Correct.
helping them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen, so
Mm.
that is a problem, I guess, even in scientific community.
Yeah.
That's right, right.
Yeah, so I have to keep telling when I fall into that, and then I realize, oh, I'm doing that,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, stop that.
yeah.
Be open-minded.
Right,
Because
right.
yeah, that's something. I think even as a coach, I kind of sometimes I fall into this rut of doing the same, following the same methodology. It's like, okay, then uh, I think a few months ago I did this. It's like I stopped and said, okay, am I training my clients properly? Am I doing everything right? Even though I've been doing this for a while and I feel like I'm getting results, is everything right? You have to self-analyze, criticize,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, I felt like it was a good exercise.
No, that is definitely needed for us to kind of introspect from time to time, right?
Yeah.
We can get into that rut in almost most aspects of life, so that you have to as an athlete, are you doing the right stuff? Is something that worked for you years ago, is it still good enough?
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And as a coach, you have to look at it and say, that worked well for that athlete. Is it good enough for this athlete, right? I mean, can you just copy paste that
Exactly. Yeah.
and expect the same results? So it's not the case,
Yeah.
right? So you kind of have to ask yourself, stop and introspect, and that is always a good exercise to do.
It's also very hard though.
Ah, man. Because
Yeah.
we the same mind that came up with the problem might not be the right one to solve it, right? So that's a hard problem to solve,
Yeah.
but you got to do it somehow, right? Awesome, man. Super fun.
Yeah.
So anything else that we want to talk about?
Um. Yeah. I was thinking of like a couple of things, like uh there's certain athletes like I guess this can be like I wanted to know from you as well, like what kind of athletes do you feel like what separates uh, a really good athlete from like an elite athlete, like not elite, but for example, so Novak Djokovic said this recently. He said that in tennis at the pro level, everyone has a good forehand, everyone has a good backhand, everyone has a great serve, everyone has good endurance. What separates people is the mentality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, have you noticed that in athletes you work with, or from people in the Bangalore cycling community or anywhere else? Like,
Yeah, see that we notice. I mean, I tend to notice uh, a lot. I mean, that is an observation that is not original to me, but that
that's fine.
that that is I've noticed that, and I completely agree with that because peop we all kind of more or less, if you look at the top athletes, physiologically, the training wise and all that, they more or less are at the similar kind of level. What separates them, apart from the team budgets, I think, that plays a big enough role. But apart from that, I think the mentality, plays a huge role. Let us say, let us take the case of Roglic, right? What happened with him in TDF, where he lost the tour on the last day time trial. Okay, if something like that happens for another guy, how do you think that kind of affects that person? I would think, for me, for most people, it would be the end of their career, because such things can put so much dent in their psyche,
Right.
that it would be almost impossible to get back from that, right? But what is the thing that, how does the Roglic deal with it? I mean, it is amazing, the kind of positive attitude, the kind of how he has dealt with a setback like that.
Yeah.
Is like amazing, so inspirational, right? So I think, coming back to it, mentality plays huge role. Mentality also kind of becomes the basis for the amount of work you are willing to put, right?
Right.
So that also is a big thing. The killer instinct that one has becomes the basis for the motivation for putting in that extra mile. I growing up, I was a big fan of Michael Jordan, and the kind of killer instinct he has, the mentality he has, man, that is crazy stuff. And you see that same in Kobe, right? And you see how the results of that, right? So I think mentality makes or breaks. I mean, don't I always look at an example closer by, someone like NJ. His mentality and his work ethic is so inspirational.
Yeah, he
Even
works
now,
so hard.
man.
Yeah.
So even now is 36 now, and the kind of improvements, even he is putting out the best numbers for him at 36.
Yes.
Because he still believes that he can do, a better job. He can squeeze a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not that he hasn't done enough over the last
Exactly.
12, 13 years. He has done, but still he's squeezing. And now someone like me says, I am past all that.
Yeah.
It's the mentality that what you are willing to put yourself through.
Yeah.
is down to the mentality, right? That makes or breaks your careers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
getting goosebumps when you were telling me about all of that. It's like, it really hits.
Yeah, yeah, man. That is really that's the bedrock of all things performance, I would think,
Mm,
in in almost all parts of our life. Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
nice. Oh, that's thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right, right.
it's really nice to hear that from another coach and like
Mm-hmm.
seeing so many athletes all these years.
Oh
Uh,
man. Oh,
wow.
this is super fun, man.
Yeah.
I really, it was super fun geeking out
Yeah.
all things performance
Yeah.
and coaching with you.
Yeah. Likewise. Yeah.
I think we should do it, more.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I'd like
Yeah.
to give more examples like the nitrate one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do a round 2, 3, 4, whenever, however it many it takes.
Uh-huh.
Let's do that. But now for now, let's wrap it up
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
And super fun. And I'll share all the links to your website and
Okay.
the socials on the show notes so that people can reach out to the consultant.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, super fun. Thank
Yeah.
you for taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks.
That was my conversation with Siddharth Kansal. I hope you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying these podcasts and are finding them useful, please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing to it on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps. Also, supporting the sponsors of the podcast is a great way to support the podcast itself. This episode is brought to you by Findbetter.ai and thebikeaffair.com. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.